Welcome, everybody. This is Ryan Staley, and I have a very special guest with me today. I have Sri Ganesan, who is the founder and CEO of Rocket Lane, a company that specializes in customer onboarding platforms. It's got a really strong passion for customer experience and startups. Some really cool things, too, is he actually founded and scaled a SaaS business called Conator, which is a mobile-first user engagement platform, actually acquired by Freshworks, joined the Freshworks team at 18 million, grew all the way to 225 million, and then left and decided to do it all over again and start as another new company with the same co-founders. Sri, welcome. Happy to have you on the show, man.
Thanks, Ryan. Happy to be here and thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, definitely, man. I love what you're doing right now and how you're taking an AI first approach, specifically as it relates to like project management and professional services. So super excited to talk to you about that and kind of how you approach things because it's definitely different and focused on the back end. And I think there's going to be some cool use cases that you talk about as we go a little bit deeper. Before we get started, though, anything super unique you'd love for the listener to hear or understand about what you're doing with the direction of AI?
Sure. I think there are a bunch of interesting things we're doing with AI. So the space we operate in two categories. One is called client onboarding and the other is called professional services automation. And it's all about running customer facing project delivery and the business aspects behind it, right? So on one hand, think of it as front of office. How do you collaborate and execute with the customer? Back of office side, it's how do you staff the project the right way? How do you do your revenue recognition, effort tracking, cost tracking per project, etc. Now, traditionally, the platform like this would focus on the work around the work because, the actual project delivery is happening through other mechanisms. But what we have done is we've figured that a lot of the actual work happens based on what's happening on calls. So we have this concept of we have our own call recorder as well as integrations with Gong, Teams, Zoom, etc. So that we're able to pull the right information from various kinds of calls into documents, into emails that you need to create and send out to customers as part of your project delivery journey. And that also sets us up for a lot more that we can do down the line with, understanding what a customer is trying to accomplish, what a team is trying to do for a customer. We're also getting into what more can we automate from a work perspective, not just the work around work, which is like the project management and the follow-ups and so on. So I think that's a very interesting space we are, exploiting, where we have that first-party information on what's happening in calls and emails, and how can we create a lot more value, bring a lot more organized intelligence from these calls and emails for our customers.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. And then it's like you also, it sounds like basically niche down into how to integrate like AI into project management, and then you're balancing the automation within human expertise as well, which I think is super unique. So you took your Series B last year, right, in 24, which is, I know you mentioned that was something that was a little bit different, right, going through that process, but you had the experience before of basically growing a company, selling it, and then being part of a really big company that you learned a lot from. So that was what you talked about prior on the show. So I guess would love to hear what you're doing differently now the second time around, what you did wrong the first time from your perception, and then what did you learn the first time, especially as being a part of a publicly traded company.
Right. I think we were pretty naive the first time around, right? So we thought all we needed to do was build a great product and customers will come, right? We did not do justice to the product through what we did on the marketing side, sales side, etc. The biggest difference this time is I feel we decided that every function needs to be world class if we need to build a world class business. So whether it's how we show up as a brand, how we engage a prospect, how we deliver great customer support, and how we support a customer through an implementation, all of it needs to feel like we are the best company prospect or customer can work with. It's not just the product that's going to shine. So that's one big mental shift for us this time. B, I would say the other big change this time has been we understood from our Freshworks journey that the bar for what is a solution that a customer will adopt, especially a mid-market and above customer will adopt, is very different from what it used to be a few years ago. We figured that an MVP approach works for certain categories, but when you're trying to get into an existing category with a all-in-one sort of play, you can't launch an MVP. So we took our time. We spent a whole year just building product without giving it in the hands of customers, built enough product to feel we had a very differentiated product in the space, and then we launched. And that's really helped us gain the right kind of attention from very early on. Also, the way we came out with a differentiated product, I feel if we had launched it earlier, customers would have pulled us towards what they're already familiar with, versus now we were able to launch with some key differentiation which came more inside out from us versus customers pulling it out. But then customers were able to see the value, see the difference that we were able to offer. And yeah, I would say those were two things that we've done very differently in this venture compared to the last one.
Okay. I think it's a good insight, and I love what you're talking about having not just the product be world class, but everything, every kind of aspect of the business being world class. And it's funny because I've personally been working a lot on that as well, and being the chief detail officer of my business, right? On top of being the CEO of my business, trying to make sure that we can continue to optimize. Like, what do you think is like the sweet spot though of that, right? Because you could over optimize and it could slow you down. So how do you approach that in terms of like the right mix of being like world class, but also being, having a good, fast, scalable business at the same time, so you don't miss opportunities? How do you kind of approach that?
I think it is about how much confidence you build in your own expertise in the area and how you transfer that to team members. Because I feel the more expertise your team builds in every function, right? A marketer should still not just be an expert in marketing, but also be an expert in your domain. A salesperson should deeply understand your product, the competitor's product, the space, what the customer is trying to accomplish, all of that. If we enable that, I feel we can move fast and still produce world-class content, world-class engagement with customers, etc. So our focus has been how do we help coach up team members to really understand the space well so that they can go and do their thing. They can be agile, they can be nimble in how they deliver and still deliver in a world-class way. I feel the other aspect of the balance is really you want to make sure you will be proud of what you're putting out there, but it doesn't have to be your best version. So that's sort of the judgment to say, hey, am I going to feel proud about this, or am I going to feel this isn't good enough? If it feels it's not good enough, then don't put it out there. You need to feel proud of it. It doesn't have to be your best version.
That's a good distinction. So, how are you approaching like growing an organization now with how fast the AI models are evolving? Because I think personally, I think that's one of the hardest challenges for folks. And maybe I'm wrong, but things are changing so fast, and there's so many models doing so many different things. And every week, it's the best, newest thing that came out, right? Which is partly marketing that we're talking about. But like, how do you work through that as like a SaaS CEO in terms of like managing the product, the roadmap, the business, where it's going, so that you don't get basically replaced by an AI tool that as a feature right now? You know what I mean? And I know your solution is much more integrated than that because it's effectively like, almost like a CRM for professional services. But how do you approach that?
I think that's a great question. And we spent a lot of time on this in the last few months because I think it is existential for every business now, right? To think about what your role is going to be in the new world. And I think a great way that I don't know if it was originally from Jason Lemkin or, paraphrased by him, but one of the lines I've seen is, are you still playing in the software TAM, or are you going after the payroll TAM? Meaning, are you going after the budget that's laid out just for software in your space, or are you actually doing the work of humans? And I think if you're doing the second, then you're on the right track. If you're only, trying to create, hey, I'm going to create 15% more efficiency for a human, I think someone else is going to come in and say, hey, we're going to do 50% of the work that the human does. So you'd better be the one thinking about that. And it doesn't mean replacing humans always. It means, reconfiguring what a team looks like when your software is in the mix. We do 100 projects with a 20-member team this year. Can we do 200 projects with a 20-member team next year is how we want our customers to think. The other way to think could be, here is 50% of the work that the team does, which could be automated away so that they can focus on certain things that they're not doing today. Or here is work that, we like this concept of digital twin to the leaders that we serve, because they can't go in and do all of the work for, working with each team member, ensuring great quality in delivery. But if their way of thinking can be replicated by an agent, then that can help them do a much better job of, being that paranoid leader, looking into every project that is being delivered by the team, assessing the quality of it, pushing the team to deliver the right kind of quality,
Mm-hmm.
etc., which is impractical for a leader to scale themselves and do today. Think about like someone who's running a team which is delivering on 500 projects, maybe it's a 100-member team. How do you help them scale? Those are the kind of things where we believe we can make a huge difference, and that's what we should be thinking about.
Yeah, well, first of all, I love the concept of like having you want to give your customers the ability to basically do, if they did 100 projects with the 20-person team this year, to do 200 next year. I think that's awesome, and I love that. It kind of reminds me of like, are you like super familiar with what Cursor's doing at all on the dev
Yeah.
side? Did you see they
Yeah,
went from
my
like,
CTO co-founder is going crazy looking at, he's like, hey, this almost can read my mind. And yeah, I think every function is going to be re-looked at. And some of us, for our own teams, we need to think about how to reconfigure so that part of the team that does the work today is instead working with AI to automate the work for the future.
yeah. Yeah, they grew from, I think it was like from 0 to 20 million in like 12 months or something like that. I think was it. And it was funny because most people are like over obsessed with replacing whole roles, and they just augmented the role, right? Like significantly. And then there's tools like Devin, which are supposed to replace the whole role, that haven't had as much traction. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic, man, with that. And I think my 2 cents is like you got to take the shots sometimes, where you got to take the plays where you have them, right? Sometimes it doesn't always need to be a 80-yard touchdown. It might just be a 10-yard chunk play that you need to take that's going to create that 200 project result with a 20-person team, if you will. So unfortunately, though, we are up on time. Where can people find you? Where can they find more about Rocket Lane? And then we'll wrap up, and we're going to talk about some fun stuff on part 2 coming up soon.
Yeah, I'm Sri Ganesan on LinkedIn, Sri Krishnan G on Twitter. Happy to engage. sri@rocketlane.com if you want to reach me by email.
Excellent, Sri. Happy to have you on the show, man. This was a lot of fun. Loved your journey. Love some of your framing with how you're helping people. I think I might borrow some of that. So thank you for that. And we'll look forward to seeing you on the next episode, man.
Thank you.
All right. And we will see you on the next episode as well.